Genesis chapter 37, verses 1 through 36. Jacob lived in the land where his father had resided as an alien, that is, in the land of Canaan. This is the account about the development of the family of Jacob. When Joseph was 17 years old, he was tending the flock with his brothers. He was just a boy compared to the sons of his father's wives Bilhah and Zilpah. Joseph brought a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his other sons, because he was the son born in his old age, and he made him a special robe. His brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, so they hated him and could not speak to him in a friendly way. Once Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, so they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Please listen to this dream that I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field, and suddenly my sheaf rose up and stood upright. Then your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "So will you really reign over us? Will you really have dominion over us?" They hated him all the more because of his dreams and what he said. Then he had another dream and told it to his brothers. He said, "Listen, I had another dream. This is what I saw. The sun and the moon and 11 stars bowed down to me." He told it to his father and to his brothers. His father rebuked him and said to him, "What kind of dream is this that you have dreamed? Will I and your mother and your brothers really come and bow down to the ground in front of you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept what he had said in mind. His brothers went to pasture their father's flock in Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "Aren't your brothers pasturing the flock in Shechem? Go, I will send you to them." Joseph said to him, "Yes, I will do it." Israel said to him, "Please go and see whether everything is going well with your brothers and with the flock. Then bring me word again." So he sent him off from the valley at Hebron, and he arrived at Shechem. A man met him as he was wandering in the countryside. The man asked him, "What are you looking for?" He said, "I am looking for my brothers. Tell me, please, where they are pasturing the flock." The man said, "They have left here. I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him in the distance, and before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. They said to each other, "Look, here comes this master of dreams. Come on. Let's kill him and throw him into one of the cisterns, and we will say, 'A wild animal has devoured him.' Then we will see what will become of his dreams." Reuben heard this and rescued him out of their hands. He said, "Let's not take his life." Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood. Throw him into this cistern that is in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him." He said this so that he could rescue him out of their hands and restore him to his father. And so when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the special robe he was wearing. Then they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty, there was no water in it. They sat down to eat bread, and they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, which they were going to deliver to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is there in killing our brother and concealing his blood? Come on. Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay a hand on him, since he is our brother, our own flesh." His brothers listened to him. As the Midianites, who were merchants, were passing by, the brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. They brought Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the cistern, he saw that Joseph was not in the cistern, so he tore his clothing. He returned to his brothers and said, "The boy is no longer here, and as for me, where will I go now?" Then they took Joseph's robe, killed a male goat, and dipped the robe in the goat's blood. They took the special robe, and they brought it to their father and said, "We have found this. Examine it now, and see whether it is your son's robe or not." He recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. A wild animal has devoured him. Without a doubt Joseph has been torn to pieces." Jacob tore his clothing, put sackcloth around his waist, and mourned for his son for many days. All his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. He said, "No, I will mourn for my son until I go down to the grave." So his father wept for him. In Egypt the Midianites sold him to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, who was the captain of the guard. Genesis chapter 39, verses 1 through 23. When Joseph was brought down to Egypt, Potiphar the Egyptian, who was an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guard, bought Joseph from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down to Egypt. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became successful. He served in the house of his master the Egyptian. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made everything that he touched a success. Joseph found favor in his sight. Joseph served him, and he made Joseph manager of his household. He put Joseph in charge of everything. From the time that Potiphar made him manager of his household, in charge of everything that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's household for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord rested on everything that he had, both in the house and in the fields. So he left Joseph in charge of everything that he had. He did not concern himself with anything except the food that he ate. Joseph was well built and handsome. Sometime after all this, his master's wife had her eye on Joseph, and she said, "Come, lie down with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not concern himself with anything that has been entrusted to me in the house. He has put me in charge of everything that he has. He has no one in this house greater than I am, and he has not withheld anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a great evil and sin against God?" She kept speaking to Joseph day after day, but he would not listen to her. He would not lie down beside her or even be with her. But one day when he went into the house to do his work, none of the men of the household were there inside the house. She caught him by his garment and said, "Come, lie down with me." He left behind his garment in her hand and ran outside. When she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had run outside, she called to the men of her household and said to them, "Look, my husband has brought a Hebrew man in to put us to shame. He came in to lie down with me, but I screamed loudly. When he heard me scream, he left behind his garment with me and ran outside." She kept his garment beside her until his master came home. This is what she told him: "The Hebrew servant, whom you have brought to us, came to me to put me to shame and said to me, 'Let me lie down with you.' And look, when I screamed and cried out, he left behind his garment with me and ran outside." As soon as his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, saying, "This is what your servant did to me," he became very angry. Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison where the king's prisoners were confined, so Joseph was kept in prison there. But the Lord was with Joseph. He showed mercy to him and gave him favor in the sight of the warden of the prison. The warden of the prison made Joseph responsible for all the prisoners who were in the prison. Joseph was responsible for whatever they did there. The warden of the prison did not pay attention to anything that was under his authority, because the Lord was with Joseph, and the Lord made everything that he did succeed.